This is the second lesson for Unit 3, Part 1, our study of the A progression. And this is your chance to apply the A progression to a song that you'd like to learn and then eventually perform for the class. We're going to study 4 different strum styles because depending on the type of music that you're playing, you might play the guitar a little bit differently to get a different sound out of it. So we're going to study a little bit of reggae strum, some finger picking, which is used for folk style strumming. We'll talk about how rock and metal musicians strum a little bit heavier, and then also the different kind of up and down strum patterns you can use to play a lot of the pop music. So you're limited in your choices for the A progression song. I want you to choose one of the 4 so that you can really concentrate on one of these strum styles. Your options are Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, which uses a reggae strum. You can do Leavin' on a Jet Plane, which is an old folk song by John Denver that a lot of people have covered. It's a pretty familiar melody. You can do Brighter Than the Sun by Colby Calais, which will use some pop strum styles. Or Wild Thing by a 70s rock band called the Trogs that I bet is familiar to many of you. Let's start by talking a little bit about the reggae strum pattern. And so if you decide to work on Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, it's very common in reggae music to focus on what's called an up strum or the offbeat. So instead of strumming 1, 2, 3, 4, and let me adjust this a little bit so you can see me strumming a little bit better. Instead of strumming 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll miss on the way down and strum up on the second half of the beat. So it's more like and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay? So you're using kind of the side of your thumb to strum up on the offbeat. Here's a little bit of Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Sing it, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Okay, so you can start to apply the reggae strum if you're interested in doing that song. If that's proving to be really difficult for you, you can always go back to just the downbeat strum, but it'll really sound more like reggae if you focus on that up strum. Okay, your next option that I mentioned is Leavin' on a Jet Plane, and I'll have YouTube examples of all these up so that you can link to and listen to the songs if you don't know them very well. Leavin' on a Jet Plane, when you listen to it, you'll notice that instead of just strumming the whole neck of the guitar, John Denver does something called finger picking. Finger picking is a really advanced technique that we'll spend a lot more time on later in your study of guitar, but you can experiment with it a little bit right now and get a pretty cool sound. Is the idea where you're just strumming one string at a time. You set the A chord up on the neck of the guitar, but instead of strumming all the strings, you'll pluck them individually. And there's different combinations you can do and different rhythms that you can utilize. The true technique uses all your fingers, but for right now, as you're just jumping into it, if you just want to pluck with your thumb or with your pick, that's okay. You'll get a cool sound out of it, and it's a good way to get started with finger picking. So listen to a little bit of John Denver doing that and experiment with it if you'd like. For pop styles, I chose Colby Calais because she's got a really cool introduction to this song where she does a lot of up and down strumming. It's like and so instead of just doing a down strum and missing on the way up, you can incorporate some up strums and get a really cool sound. So you can play with that a little bit for Colby Calais, and that's really used frequently in pop music. Last but not least is the song Wild Thing, which uses a repeated pattern. So you'll notice it's written a little bit differently. Instead of having the chord symbols above the lyrics, you've just got this pattern that's happening over and over again. hear how that pattern just keeps going and going and going. And for rock and metal, you're going to use just a really heavy down strum, always a down strum, not mixing in any fancy up strums or anything like that. For true like heavy metal rock music, which this is an example of. So listen to some of the songs if you're unfamiliar. Experiment with some of the strum styles, and then choose one to focus on. You're going to learn it really well and perform it for the class. Have fun.